Welcome back. In this lecture, we'll try to understand death or decline of political theory. This term that political theory is going towards its decline or has died was given by behavioralists. Behavioralists gave this idea of death or decline of political theory. What does this mean? Behavioralists say political science is going towards its death or decline. What does this mean? Who were behavioralists? We will understand in the next lecture or the lecture after that. Behavioralists like David Easton, Peter Laslet, Robert Dahl said observed that political science or political theory is going towards death or decline. Why there is death or decline of political theory? Why death or decline? Why there is death or decline of political theory? Because because reconstruction conferences were going on. Reconstruction conferences were going on after World War II. Right? Destruction happened in World War II. Now, on what basis reconstruction should happen, redistribution should happen after World War II? Conferences regarding this were going on, but conferences to give suggestions suggestions to developmental agencies and government with respect to how to develop, how to develop, how to develop newly independent countries and all that. In these conferences, political science scholars were excluded. Economists, sociologists, psychologists were invited, but political scientists were ignored. When when a discipline is ignored by government, there is natural decline in funding, there is natural decline of that discipline. So why there was decline of political science? Because political science or political scientists were not called to developmental conferences. In this context, in this ignorance of governmental agencies of political scientists, in this context, David Easton, David Easton, in his book, in his book, Political System: An Inquiry into State of Political Science, 1953. Why political scientists were not were not invited? Why political science faced decline? David Easton gives his views in regards to this. In regard to this, whereby he criticized traditionalists who were traditionalists, philosophical, empirical, and historical. He criticized traditionalists by saying that traditionalists were limited to abstract political ideas, abstract political philosophies. Traditionalists were limited to abstract political ideas, in Western political thought, right? Western political thought was written way before contemporary times, way before 1950s. So, so current practitioners of discipline were limiting themselves to old ideas. Old ideas. He says that he says that after Mill and Marx, after Mill and Marx, nothing good has come out of philosophy. Only Mill and Marx, after Mill and Marx, no good political philosophy has came to address contemporary concerns. Right? What he basically wanted to say that old ideas were not enough to old ideas were not enough to solve contemporary issues. Contemporary issues. And he says that even though world today is suffering from a crisis, no new idea is emerging. Right? No new idea is emerging. This was view of David Easton. So as to why discipline is suffering decline because traditionalists made political science hostage to Western political philosophy ideas of old age, which have no relevance in today's time. Right? Then he criticized institutionalist. What is institutionalism? We will understand in comparative politics. Criticize institutionalists. What does institutionalism mean? What does institutionalism mean? It is it is an approach of comparative politics, right? Institutionalism is a approach in comparative politics, and it analyzes functioning of institutions as field of its studies. Example, if anyone analyzes institution of judiciary and functioning of institution of judiciary through lens of political science, that is institutional study of judiciary for political science. If someone analyzes state, if someone analyzes patriarchy as an institution, and then that is institutionalist study of a particular topic for political science, right? It is like legal constitutional approach. Legal constitutional approach. So we are studying a particular institution. We are studying a particular institution. Against this, against this, against this, uh, Easton suggests Easton suggests by institutionalism. What by institutionalism you are studying law, legality, and constitutions and institutions. Right? When you study institutions, you study law, legality, constitution, and institutions. When you limit yourselves to law, legality, which means political science, which means political science becomes sub-discipline of law, of discipline of law. Right? Again, again, there is one issue. You see, you see things like prismatic societies in post-colonial nations. We have studied concepts like prismatic societies. We have studied concepts like uh, soft state. So, in a situation in a country where law are not applied properly, law are only just paper tigers. When law is limited to paper, what is the point of understanding such law? We have to understand what happens in real world. So studying institutions will limit ourselves to theory. Application part is missing. That is why there is decline of political science. Right? Then he criticized. Then Easton criticized normativist as well. Normativist as well. By by criticism of normativist, he wants to say that if you study philosophy is basically is ideas or perspective or speculation of a particular particular philosopher. When you limit yourself to normative theory of an individual philosopher, right, you limit yourself to their thinking, right? When I say I am studying Plato's theory of justice, when I say I am studying justice and I am limiting myself to Plato's theory of justice, then I am limited in my understanding of justice, right? Justice as an idea, if I study only through one perspective, then I am limiting. Normative normativists are like that. They limit themselves to speculations of particular philosophers. So when you study Marx and when you limit yourselves to ideas of Marx, then such ideas are very limited. They are very limiting. They have a limiting factor on your thinking, right? On the other hand, disciplines like sociology and economy give fact-based theory, right? You understand party system in India. You understand party system in India through lens of sociology. When we understand party system in India, you will see most of the people talking about party system in India are sociologists. Rajni Kothari was a sociologist. He was not a political scientist, right? When you study about when you study about everything which is fact based, there is either economist behind it or sociologist behind it. So when disciplines like sociology and economy gave fact based theory, traditionalists limited themselves to abstract ideas. That is why political science faced decline, right? This decline was also analyzed by scholar known as Alfred Cobban. Alfred Cobban analyzed decline of political science in his paper The Decline of Political Theory. Alfred Cobban in his paper Decline of Political Theory in Political Science Quarterly, also in 1993. In 1993, 1950, not 93, but 1953. Alfred Cobban, in his paper Decline of Political Theory, says that says that with emergence of with emergence of similar political structure in both capitalist and communist countries, there is no need of normative debates. Right? How? Right? How? Suppose this is a capitalist country, this is a communist country. Who do you think? Who do you think? Who do you think handles the country? Who do you think handles the administration of the country? Who do you think handles the order of the country? It is bureaucracy. Capitalist country also has bureaucracy. Communist country also has bureaucracy. They have same bureaucratic structure, even though their political structure, a capitalist country will be democratic, right? And communist country will be authoritarian. Both are handled by bureaucracies. Both are controlled by bureaucracies. right? So in both capitalist and communist countries, there is a similar administrative and capitalist structure, administrative and political structure, right? That is why that is why there is no need for normative debates. Normative debates, right? Who, even though political system is different, who handles administration? It is bureaucracy across across type of countries. When this happens, there is no need for normative debates, right? Philosophy becomes redundant because even though political systems are different, bureaucracy is the same, right? He also criticized legal positivist as well. Legal positivist we are going to understand before behavioralism, whereby they emphasize on facts and verifiability. How it is different from behavioralism, we'll understand in the next lecture, right? So Alfred Cobban says decline of political theory happened because there is no need to dive into political theory because administrative structure and party structure across the countries with different ideologies follow the same kind of pattern. Then, then SM Lipset also gives his view on decline of political theory in his book Political Man, right? Social basis of politics. Political Man, social basis of politics. 1960 book. 1960 book. SM Lipset in his book Political Man says that he gives a similar kind of argument as end of ideology. What end of ideology says that ideology has become redundant, ideology has become irrelevant because development is more important now, or development takes the cake, right? Question on best way of life has been solved. What is best way of life? Liberal democracies with capitalist economy. Liberal democracies with capitalist economy. So SM Lipset says ideology is redundant, development matters more. Hence, when ideology is redundant, normative political theory is also not needed. That is the idea of Lipset in his book Political Man, Social Basis of Politics. Right? This was decline as analyzed by David Easton in his book Political System, Alfred Coban in his book The Decline of Political Theory, and SM Lipset in his book Political Man. Then we see, then we see decline of behavioralism and end of decline of political theory. End of decline of political theory. Right? End of decline of political theory. How this decline started, I will tell you. Right? We have studied in Rawls, we have studied in Hannah Arendt, we have studied in Rawls in particular. Right? USA of time of Rawls was going through Vietnam War, was going through uh, uh, protest by blacks, protest by women. In this situation of crisis, Rawls gives a theory which is purely based on philosophy, and that theory works. He gives a principle that we should rationalize affirmative action. We should go forward with a particular public policy which leads to greatest advantage of least advantage while keeping the liberal principles of liberty and equality intact. Right? So the end of decline did not did not happen due to behavioralism. What behavioralism tried to do was scientification or positivism in political system or political theory, which did not work. What finally worked was Rawls' political theory. So end of decline. End of decline of political science. Behavioralists like David Easton started working on political theory, started working towards making political science scientific. So they started getting some calls from government about how to lead public policy, how to redevelop and all those things. But but in this pursuit of making political science scientific, David Easton failed and it could not happen. Why it could not happen? We'll say in behavioralism, it could not happen. And in 1960s and 70s, you see protest in America, right? Protest started. Protest started. In protest, political scientists could not find any solution, right? Behavioralists could not find any solution, right? Behavioralists realized that research, scientific research, have little utility in taming protest. Behavioralism is not at all useful in forming public policy. Behavioralism is or is not useful. It is only useful in electoral behavior, understanding how electorate moves, not anything beyond that. So systematization, verification, experimentation did not work. When that did not work, when that did not work, decline of political science started again, and this time, Leo Strauss criticized behavioralists for this decline. Decline started. Decline started. Then this decline was arrested after behavioralism started gaining some traction. As behavioralism started gaining some traction, suddenly you see a lot of protest in America. This protest this protest, behavioralists had no solution. They were blank. When they were blank, again, governments move towards sociologists for solution, economists for solution, and this decline, the second decline, was blamed on behavioralists by normativists like Leo Strauss. This time, Leo Strauss blamed behavioralists for decline. The final, the final revival was given by Rawls, and that revival is still continuing. Political science today is a quite robust discipline because it has international relations as well. Political science is of course there. So so you see Leo Strauss. Leo Strauss in his book What is Political Philosophy? What is Political Philosophy? 1957 paper, not book, paper. Right. Leo Strauss in his paper What is Political Philosophy blamed behavioralist and legal positivist for decline. Strauss says Strauss said that if you ignore values, if you ignore norms and limit yourselves to and facts and facts and observation, subject was bound to decline. You cannot ignore values or norms and limit yourself to facts and observation because there is no political science then. It is positivism. You're trying to make a science out of a discipline which started as philosophy. That does not work. This is what Leo Strauss wanted to say. Then you see Dante Germino in his book Beyond Ideology. In his book Beyond Ideology, he says that decline was due to legal positivist. He does not talk about he does not talk about behavioralism, right? He says legal positivism led to decline, and he says that why there is decline in political science, because after Marxism there is no other ideology which emerged. Marxism was the last ideology. We see philosophers or ideologies like fascism, but fascism was not ideology. It was pure power game. So Marxism was the last idea which was a real political idea. So Dante Germino says that we need a new political idea, right? We need new political idea, and we need to go beyond science. We have to talk about values as well. And the decline eventually stopped. Decline of political science stopped after Rawls. Rawls gave his theory of justice, which was which was very philosophical. It was not based on facts at all. Rawls went into social contract. Rawls went beyond veil of ignorance, very metaphysical, very abstract, very idea based. Then you see Hannah Arendt. Hannah Arendt talking about zone politikon. Hannah Arendt giving her ideas on totalitarianism, her ideas on freedom, her ideas on revolution, her concept of banality, natality, her concept of triad of labor, work, and action, right? So, and Hannah Arendt had a lot of audience behind her. She was a successful author. That is why political philosophy saw some revival. Then there is Macpherson. Macpherson gives substantive theory of democracy. Substantive theory of democracy was the most important theory of democracy. It was widely read, and it affected public policies of a lot of countries. Then, then Easton spoke again. Easton, who originally gave clarion call of who gives call of behavioralism, scientism, positivism in political science. Now he blamed behavioralist, right? Now he blamed behavioralist. Why decline? Why decline of political science? He blamed behavioralist. Why he blamed behavioralist? Because he said that I said behavioralism, but Easton says basically Easton said behavioralism that we should focus on facts, observation, experimentation, right? Scientific thinking within political science. But behavioralists and practitioners of behavioralists focused more on techniques than goals or application, right? And he said that behavioralists are sitting on ivory towers, perfecting their techniques without purpose. Their techniques have no purpose. They are building their techniques for the sake of it, for academic reasons. But techniques needs real world purpose. Because he criticized behavioralism, now he gives call for post behavioralism. What is post behavioralism? Post behavioralism is golden mean between political philosophy and behavioralism. Post behavioralism is madhyama marga between political philosophy and behavioralism, whereby it incorporates both philosophy and facts, observation, experimentation. It is best of both the worlds. With post behavioralism, decline of political philosophy, political theory stopped, and now political science is a very frontier discipline. It is it is expanding day by day. New research are happening. New research are happening day by day. Right? Comparative politics is the most important discipline today in political science. There is postmodernism as well. Very a big chunk of research is going to political postmodernism. Right? New ideas and new disciplines which are taking centrality in political science today are like that. Postmodernism and post-behavioralism are very frontier. Comparative politics takes a big chunk of the new research and new theory. So that is idea. That is the idea of p- political science. That is the idea of approaches. That is the idea of journey of political science. From Socrates to Rawls, we have studied political science. After Rawls, we also have studied after Rawls, post-colonialism and all that. But that is how discipline evolved. Discipline evolved from Socrates to latest to Rawls, right? I will keep myself to Rawls, and that is how subject evolved. There was a decline, there was arrest, there was decline again, but today it is a very frontier discipline with respect to public policy and everything around it. So that is the idea behind political science. This is political science. I hope you are enjoying political science. I hope you are enjoying studying political science. So this was the nature of political science as a discipline. From the next lecture, we'll start with behavioralism and post-behavioralism. I hope you are all ready for it. Thank you so much. Bye.